All right, so right outside Tokyo Station, you guys know why I'm here, to get the last bezel, the Pepsi. And before I go and drop off my GMT, I've got to make some videos because I won't have it for a while. And I asked the question, what is a Rolex GMT? What is it? All right, well, that's an interesting question. I mean, what is the identity of this watch? I mean, where does it come from? What's the DNA? Well, it's definitely got some of that 1926 oyster in it, hence the oyster on the dial. And it's also got some 1931 oyster perpetual. I would say that's one of its oldest relatives. 1931 oyster perpetual. But it also has the rotating bezel. And the rotating bezel was first used on a prototype Rolex in 1937. It was the zero graph. Did Rolex come up with a rotating bezel? Unfortunately, no. We will never speak of this again. But the actual first rotating bezel was watch brand Weems. Weems was a navigation official, and he made courses and watches in navigation, and that was in 1930. So 1930, the Weems watch was the first rotating bezeled watch, and 7 years later, Rolex used it on that prototype zero graph, which, what can you say about the zero graph? Well, I think there's only like about 10 in existence, and it was flyback chronograph, and it was a lot like my speed timer. It was a three-hander, but the second hand you could fly it back and use it like a chronograph. So there was no totalizer on it, and it had a rotating bezel, and the rotating bezel was kind of like looked like a chronograph in a way. So I'm not quite sure the function of it, but yeah, for timing, I guess, just timing, however you want to use it. 1937. Okay, so this watch, would I say it has some zero graph in it? I suppose. I mean, that was not a mass-produced watch. The first mass-produced watch with a bezel was the 6202 Turnograph. Came out in 1953, and that is really the grandfather of the sub and the GMT, and pretty much really any and every Rolex steel sports watch with a rotating bezel. And you can see a lot of elements in both the sub and this with that 6202. In fact, the dial looks really similar. If I were to show my wife the dial, she would swear, okay, that these are completely the same watch. Okay, well, the 6202, it didn't have a date function on it. The writing was in gilded writing. But it had the crown, it had the Rolex, it had the oyster perpetual, no date. The date word wasn't there. And then where mine says GMT Master II, it had turnograph, and there was not the bit about superlative chronometer officially certified. I have no idea why I'm shaking so much. I'm holding my hands in weird ways. But anyway, and also the this has a open track chapter, and then that has a closed track chapter. So there was a little line that connected all those minute marks. And of course, it was a radium dial, but it looked really similar. There was no Swiss made on there, but you had the circular indices, and you had the rectangles at the 3, 6, 9, and you had the triangle at the 12, and the circular indices, and it was a black dial, and it just looked pretty much exactly like this. Of course, it was no date. It was no date. And it had a black bezel as well. And the black bezel had hashes all the way around it. And that was in 1953. And it gave birth eventually to the sub, but also to this. And I would say that's one of its closest relatives. And what can I say about it? I mean, obviously the movement is different with this. The chronograph is another interesting animal to talk about, and it's a bit of a failure. And that's another video. But it really shouldn't be. I mean, it's such an important watch in the evolution of Rolex. So you've got the Jubilee bracelet on here, and Jubilee bracelet came out in 1945, so it's got a little bit, at least this one does, a little bit of Datejust in there, and hey, it's got a date. Look at that date right there. Now, the Datejust, why do they call it a Datejust? Well, it's because it's got the quick change date. I mean, and let me tell you, at 11:59 and 99 seconds, actually they don't really ever change exactly at that time, but when they do change, it's instant, and you never see the date in anything but a justified just position, hence the date just. It's not like Seiko 5 and it takes, you know, an hour to sort of roll up, and it's not even like a ETA movement where when you get to about 11:50 at night, the date is off center before it clicks over. No, this is pure luxury. It looks just like this, and then a moment later, that 4 is perfectly centered. The date is just justified, and this definitely has some 1945 Datejust in it. Well, that would be the date window. And you know, Rolex came out with the first date window, not the first date. I mean, they had dates on watches centuries ago. But as far as the date window, which is a great idea, that was Rolex. And then 8 years later, came out with that Cyclops. So it's got a little bit of that in it. So it's definitely got some Datejust DNA. It's definitely got some chronograph DNA. And even further back, definitely got that 1931 Oyster Perpetual DNA. So that really is what this watch is all about. That's really the DNA and sort of makeup and identity of this watch. And right now it's got a Coke bezel, so that's sort of reminiscent of a 16760 Fat Lady. The first time, 1983, it came out with a Coke bezel. Went on for 5 years until 1988, and that was I mean, if you see a Fat Lady, it's going to have a Coke bezel on there, and that was the birth of the Coke bezel. And so it's got well, at least this one has a little bit of I guess fat lady on it right now at the moment, but it wasn't born like that. No, it wasn't born with any Fat Lady on it. It was born in all black, 16710LN. But that's okay. That's all right. We can enjoy a little Fat Lady on there, and we're getting ready to get a Pepsi on it, and that's gonna be a 6542 1954 bezel, the original, the Pan Am colors, and there you go. That is what makes a GMT Master II 16710. I mean, there's a lot of evolution in this watch, and it's neat to appreciate and see all those little elements and how they've come together to make what I think is the pinnacle of the GMT line. What do you guys think? Let me know. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time. All right, guys, well, let's just walk a little bit more together. I mean, I've done the video, I've said what I've had to say, but let's just spend a little bit more quality time together. Overcast day. I really like this area. It's really interesting. It makes me feel kind of like a tourist coming here and seeing, you know, other tourists makes me appreciate it. And it's another bride and a groom over there having their picture taken. And Rolex straight ahead. Oh, what's my replacement watch? Well, it's the Vostok. And I got to make a video about that Vostok. But, you know, as far as Vostoks go, I really like it a lot. It's, by far, it's the best Vostok I've had. But that's just the luck of the draw. All right. All right, guys. So the guy sitting right next to me had an Explorer 1016. He was picking up another watch, which I don't know what it was, but he's at least got two Rolexes and one of them's a 1016. I checked out the Rolex Way, which is like a booklet of sort of Rolex things, like, you know, the Cyclops or the Oyster case or the Jubilee bracelet. And an interesting one was the green sapphire crystal, and it said, and I quote, "Not patented, but so difficult to make, no one would even venture to try." So I thought that was kind of interesting. And they called in that book the Milgauss Irresistible, the style Irresistible, which I don't know, it's kind of weird. I think it's pretty resistible to a lot of people. A bit of an acquired taste, I think, maybe, with that secondhand. It's definitely one of their weirder watches. All right, guys, so I'm wearing the Vostok now. I put on the Vostok when I was at Rolex and wore it proudly to the counter. I'm sure nobody noticed. All right, and thanks for watching. Take care. Let me know what you think in the comments section. See you next time.